All right, let's talk about evolution. It's one of the absolute cornerstones of modern science, but man, is it surrounded by myths. So today, we're going to cut right through all that confusion and tackle 5 of the biggest misconceptions head on. Let's find out what the science actually says. So here's what we've got lined up. First, we're going to get into what scientists really mean when they use the word theory. Then we'll go on a hunt for those so-called missing links. After that, we'll straighten out our surprising family tree, look at how evolution is more about chance than some grand march of progress, and then for the grand finale, we'll find some proof of evolution happening right in your own body. Okay, let's dive right in with the big one. This is probably the single most common objection you hear about evolution. And you know what? It all boils down to a misunderstanding of just one little word. I mean, how many times have you heard this? Someone just dismisses the whole thing by saying, oh, it's just a theory. The idea is that a theory is, what, a hunch, a wild guess? But that completely misses the point of how scientists actually use that word. So let's just look at the official scientific definition for a second. The National Academy of Sciences says a theory isn't some guess. No, it's a well-substantiated explanation. What does that even mean? Well, it means it's a super powerful framework that's backed by a mountain of evidence. It's been tested and confirmed over and over again. Honestly, in science, calling something a theory is pretty much the highest honor you can give an idea. It's the gold standard. So this is the main thing to remember, right? When we're just chatting, theory means a hunch. I have a theory about why my team lost last night. But in science, when scientists talk about the theory of evolution or, hey, the theory of gravity, they're talking about a rock-solid, evidence-based explanation for how the world actually works. The two meanings, they're night and day. Couldn't be more different. All right, let's move on to our next big myth. This one is all about the fossil record. You hear this a lot, that there are no missing links, right? No fossils that show one species changing into another. Well, let's put that to the test. Let's go looking for evidence of one of the most wild and dramatic transitions you could possibly imagine. I mean, think about this. Walking whales. It sounds completely absurd, doesn't it? The idea that this gigantic ocean mammal, a whale, could have evolved from an animal that walked on land? I mean, if that really happened, there would have to be some kind of evidence, right? Some fossil of a creature that was part land animal, part whale. So, where is it? Well, here it is. This is it. This is an absolutely perfect example of the power of the fossil record. Geologists found this skeleton, not just one, but hundreds of them, in a desert in Egypt that, millions of years ago, was a shallow sea. It's called a basilosaurus. It's an ancient whale, fully aquatic, but look at that. It still had legs, visible legs. This is literally the definition of a transitional fossil. And look, this basilosaurus isn't some one-off discovery. It's just one dot on a really clear timeline. When you put all the fossils together, you can see this incredible gradual journey playing out over millions of years. You go from four-legged land mammals to semi-aquatic animals, and eventually to the fully aquatic whales we see today. Whales that, by the way, still have tiny little remnant leg bones hidden inside their bodies. So the missing links? Yeah, they're not missing, they've been found. Okay, so from whales, let's bring this a little closer to home. Let's talk about us, human evolution. This can be a really sensitive topic, and a lot of that comes down to one super common and super wrong idea about how we're related to apes. You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? It's that classic question, and you've definitely seen the picture. That cartoon lineup of an ape that slowly stands up straighter and straighter until it becomes a modern human. It's a really powerful image, for sure. But is it actually right? Did we really evolve from chimpanzees? The answer is a big, fat no. Simple as that. That famous picture? It's got the whole story wrong. Okay, so here's the actual story. We didn't evolve from chimps. It's better to think of us as evolutionary cousins. We're sister species. We both evolved from a shared common ancestor that lived something like 6 or 7 million years ago. And here's the key. That ancestor was not a modern chimp, and it was not a modern human. It was its own thing. And from that point, our two family lines split off and started evolving on their own separate paths. And you know how we know this for sure? The genetics. The DNA evidence makes this relationship absolutely undeniable. I mean, it is just stunning how close we are. Get this, you and a chimpanzee share about 98.5% of your DNA. That is just wow. It's overwhelming proof that chimps are our closest living relatives, all connected back to that same ancient ancestor. Okay, so let's keep going because this next myth really gets at a common misunderstanding. A lot of us think of evolution as this straight line, right? A march of progress that's always making things better, stronger, more perfect. But the real story is so much messier and honestly, way more interesting than that. And a huge part of this myth comes straight from pop culture. You watch a movie, someone gets hit with some weird radiation, and boom, mutation. They have superpowers. But in real biology, a mutation is just a random change in DNA, totally by chance. They're not aiming for anything, most of them do absolutely nothing, a lot of them are actually harmful, and only a very, very tiny fraction turn out to be helpful. It's natural selection that then sorts through that random mess. And you know what? The pace of evolution isn't always this super slow, steady crawl either. There's this really cool idea called punctuated equilibria. Basically, the fossil record shows that a lot of species will just hang out, not changing much at all, for millions of years. That's the equilibria part. But then, bam, something big happens in the environment, and it triggers a really fast burst of evolutionary change. That's the punctuation. So it's not a steady march. It's more like long periods of quiet, followed by a flurry of activity. And that, by the way, helps explain why sometimes it looks like there are gaps in the fossil record. The big changes can happen in a geological blink of an eye.
Okay, for our last myth, we're going to bring this whole massive idea of evolution right down to you, personally. You don't need to be a paleontologist digging for fossils. You don't need to be in a lab sequencing a genome. All you need to see the evidence is to look at your own body.
So I want you to actually try something with me right now. We're going to do a little test for what's called a vestigial muscle. It's basically an evolutionary leftover, a little remnant from our ancestors that a lot of us just don't have anymore because, well, we don't need it. You ready? Okay, put your arm down on a table or your leg, whatever's flat, with your palm facing up. Now, just touch your pinky to your thumb, and then lift your hand up just a little bit. Now look at your wrist. Do you see a tendon that kind of pops up right in the middle? If you do, congratulations, you have the palmaris longus muscle. Our tree-climbing ancestors used that for extra grip. Now, what if you don't see it? Don't freak out, your grip strength is totally fine. It just means you are a walking, talking example of human evolution in action.
And hey, if you don't have it, you are in very good company. Something like 16% of people with European ancestry are missing that muscle in one arm, and about 9% don't have it in either. Since it doesn't really give us any advantage anymore, it's just slowly disappearing from the human gene pool.
Here's another great example, wisdom teeth. We all know the pain of wisdom teeth, right? Well, our ancient ancestors needed those big, heavy-duty molars to grind up tough, raw plants and meat. But once we figured out cooking and our diets got softer, our jaws actually started getting smaller. Suddenly, those extra teeth weren't just useless, they became a problem. And today, about 35% of people are just born without them at all. We are literally evolving them away. So that really brings us to the final takeaway here. When you think about it, from the real meaning of the word theory to the incredible fossils buried under our feet, and even to the muscles or lack thereof in our own arms, the evidence for evolution is just everywhere. It's not some dusty old story about the distant past. It is a living, breathing process that is shaping us right now, today, and will keep shaping our species long into the future. So the only real question left is, what's next? What change?